This is the exact system that's going to scale my agency to 100K per month within the next 6 to 12 months. And if you watch this entire video, not only are you going to learn what the fuck you're looking at, but you're going to learn the two critical mistakes that I made that made me realize that this system is what actually fucking works. If you don't know who I am, my name is Lionel Batilden. I've been an operator in the high ticket consulting space for the last 6 to 7 months. No, I'm not another person that's just talking shit on the fucking internet. These are live accounts from my clients, so you could literally just fucking see. I am showing this instead of screenshots that I can show you that have way bigger amount, because you're gonna believe my live accounts more than you're going to believe any fucking random screenshot. And lastly, no, I am not here to sell you anything at the moment. My only purpose here is to document my process and potentially attract more clients for my agency. So let's start off with what the fuck you're looking at right now. So what you're looking at is called a growth engine, and all a growth engine is just a very clear outline of how people go from not knowing how you fucking exist to them giving you money and officially becoming a customer. Now we can expand the growth engine and add a fulfillment engine with it next to it, and that will create a value engine, but that's getting a little bit too complex. The reason why you want to build out growth engines is, number one, if you cannot visually build out a growth engine, you don't understand your client attraction process well enough. And number two, if you cannot visualize it, you can't make improvements. Or at least it's very hard to make improvements without visibility. That basically covers what this is on a broad scale. But before we dive into each little touch point, let's go back and talk about the two mistakes that I made in the past. Mistake number one is having an unpredictable growth engine. What the fuck does that mean? Well, to understand what an unpredictable growth engine is, you have to understand what a predictable growth engine is, right? A predictable growth engine just means that you can take a specified amount of action and get a specified amount of results. If you're running ads, you can put it $1 in, and depending on how the growth engine works, you get $2 back, $3 back, or maybe you lose half a dollar, but at least you fucking know. If you're sending outbound cold calling emails, you can literally track. Okay, I call this many people, I get this amount of clients. I send this many emails, I get this amount of clients. I send this many DMs, I get this amount of clients back. That is a predictable growth engine because you can literally predict, if you do this amount of actions, you will get this result. Now, the growth engine I was using before is content. The reason why I want to point this out is because there's a trend right now in the growth operating space that content is the best way to attract clients into your agency. I have been there and done that. There are very few operators that attracted clients through their content like I did. So I can tell you from somebody that's already walked that path, the pitfall of relying solely on content. Because this is not me saying that content doesn't work. This is me saying that relying solely on content is a fucking problem. Here's why. It's not predictable. You can't predictably say, okay, if I post X amount of pieces of content, I will get X amount of dollars back, or I will get X amount of clients back. You cannot do that, which makes content extremely unscalable. And once again, this is not me saying this because content hasn't worked for me. It has worked for me in the past. You can see that I consistently get viewership through my short form content, right? And it's not from random people; it's from high level coaches. Because here's another caveat: a lot of these people that are pushing content for growth operators, that's just a mechanism for the growth operating course. But we're not here to have that conversation. So that's the first mistake I had that I was making, was not having a predictable growth engine to bring me clients where I can literally say, if I do X amount of work, or I put this amount of energy into the system, I will get this amount of results back. Right. Number two mistake I made, and this is an even bigger mistake because it's just fucking retarded. Right. I made the critical mistake of that no business should ever make, is I stopped focusing on getting new clients, and I started focusing on client fulfillment. Now, I know you hear that and you're like, well, you got to have good client fulfillment, blah, 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 blah. I agree. I think client fulfillment is the most important part of an ecosystem. I think it is, personally, right? But here's the thing. The problem is I stopped trying to get new clients. And within the agency space, specifically what I'm doing, there are a lot of things that could happen, right? Clients could churn, clients could perform poorly. From all our clients that perform poorly, it's typically because their front end content is attracting the wrong avatar, right? So there's a lot of things that could happen. So if you don't have consistent deal flow, if you don't have a reserve list or a wait list of clients being fed into the system, you are put in a position where your business is at a risk, right? Luckily, for us, right, and I say us because it's me and my business partner, we have a pretty decent referral list where we have enough results in the space. Just some people just send us clients, right? That's the only way we've survived is through referrals, which again is an unpredictable growth engine. And I set this first 5 7 minutes of this video to drive this point home because it is so important that you don't make this fucking mistake. I'm still tripling down on content. I stopped posting on Instagram, right? And you see me push harder for YouTube, right? But number one, there's a delayed feedback or gratification period. So the work I'm doing for YouTube right now, this is not something I'm not going to see a result in this for 12 to 18 months, right? And number two, YouTube is still extremely unpredictable as far as it being a growth engine. I cannot predictably say, okay, I'm going to make X amount of videos, right? And I'm going to get X amount of clients back. You cannot fucking do that. And if you do not know how to predictably get clients as a business, you are doomed to fucking fail. So why even do content in the first place? That's a big question, right? You're talking to the content guy. I double down on this shit. I believe this shit wholeheartedly because I believe that content is an amplifier. That's the big lesson I want you to learn from my to pass on to you from my fucking failures so far, right? Is content is an amplifier for whatever existing growth engines you already have. So this is my I spend time on this specific section before we go into actually building out predictable growth engines on this point right here. Because if you put yourself in a position when you are solely relying on content or solely relying on referrals, I'm sorry, but you're fucked. You are fucked. Do not look at it as a way to get clients. Look at it as a way to amplify how easy it is for clients to find you, right? That's the first caveat. Now let's get into this, right? So, predictable growth engines that I am planning to use within my agency in order to constantly attract new fucking clientele. There are really three of them. One of them is complete. Second, another one is semi complete, and a third one we haven't structured out because it's too far out in the process for us to do so. Right. Number one is an outbound Instagram engine. Number two is outbound email engine. And number three is, of course, ads. These are the three predictable growth engines that I recommend that every single growth operator or agency owner or whatever you are watching this use. Because once again, it's fucking controllable. Now, let's start off with the symbol key, right? It looks super fancy. It's really not that complex or fancy as long as you just understand what each symbol means. So terminus right here, which is this little circle square thing, is the start and end of a specific process. Square equals task, activity, or the process itself. Diamond, which is the decision gate, the decision point, gateway, or if then statement. You'll understand what that means once we get into the nitty gritty. Um, like slanted, or I think it's called a rhombus. I haven't been in fucking math in like years, bro. I dropped out. It's the data input, and then arrows are obviously the flow of the process. Now we also have a color coded per department. So we have virtual assistants, setters slash SDRs, closers, operator, and AI. Now let's get into the fully built out one. Right, this can be broken down into three segments. So lead sourcing slash scraping, setting, and then closing. The reason why we want I itemize this is so we know what the fuck we're looking at when we're actually fucking analyzing this. Because once again, the point of mapping it out like this is so you have the visibility on what the fuck is going on in your company. A lot of you guys are just operating like fucking airheads, and I say you guys when I'm really talking about myself because how I've been operating over the last fucking 6 to 7 months is like a fucking brain dead airhead that doesn't know. I like just think about that. How can you be an effective business owner if you cannot literally say step by step how somebody goes from not knowing you exist to giving you money. It's just fucking stupid. It's just fucking stupid. It's just fucking retarded, right? But let's get into the nitty gritty, right? So we have this terminus start. Then it's look for potential clients on any social media platform. Then we have an if-then statement of qualifying the lead. Lead is qualified based on the inputs we have in here or the data we have in here for our ideal client checklist. If unqualified, then we ignore the lead and move on. Then terminus end, so that closes off this process. If it is if that lead is qualified, then if you check if we have an IG. If they don't, I have to finish out the process for what happens if they don't. But that's what I want, because while you're building something out like this, you're able to find points in your logic, you're able to find points in your process that don't fucking exist. And guess what you get to do? You get to fucking fix it. That's why you want to be able to map it out and visualize it, is so you can see the weak points in your fucking system, right? But let's move on. If they do have an IG, they put their data into the Instagram core outreach tracking sheet. This is it right here, right? Then send messages in IG DMs, right? This is the whole entire outreach DM messaging and whatever, blah 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 blah, right? This right here, as you can see, number one, it changes from VA work to setter/SDR work, right? This is going to be specific to setter because this is in DMs. If this was if this was like cold calling, then this would be an SDR, blah 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 blah, right? So we start with a whole bunch of if then statements, right? Now another key nuance on why this is so important, especially when you map it out by like the decision tree, is you're able to see like, okay, which parts of my process can I just put it in low labor or a low effort labor, because it's not really that energy and intensive. There's not a lot of cognitive ability that's required to carry out this process, versus which part of my process do I have to make sure that I don't have a fucking idiot in, or they're gonna just fucking break the whole entire process. Because if you look at VA work, right, yeah, we have terminus, we have action block, and then we have, these aren't really decisions. Like these are just if yes then this, if not then this. Right. But when we look at such staff, there's a lot more raw missile or diamonds or whatever the fuck you want to call it, right? So they have to be a lot more cognitive. But that's just one nuance. So send the intro message. If they don't respond, then follow up process. If they don't respond to the follow up process, then you end the sequence. If they do follow up to the follow up, or if they do respond to the follow up process, or just respond to the initial message, then hold convo that leads to sales call. Right. If there's a mid convo drop off, right, you follow the follow up process. If they reject the call, sequence end. If they accept the call, then manually book the call. The reason why we manually book the call is because we've actually seen a massive drop off from calendar links specifically for agency clients. This is not like we're running coaching. I did do a coaching offer for like a little bit, and I just realized that it just fucking distracted me from the agency, which is what I actually want to build up. It was pretty sweet, right? I made generated 9K first week revenue, right? Cash collected was like fucking 1.2K, right? But we're not gonna talk about that. And then that month generated 30K revenue, right? But again, that was just a big distraction. But that's just me fucking hyping myself up. But so manually book them into a call, if and then follow up the call confirmation process, right? But guess what? We have this block right here that I put in here, and I can put a note that it needs to be made because it doesn't exist yet. Once again, this is me driving in the point of this is why this is important, because it lets you see the pitfalls or the bottlenecks or the things that should exist that don't exist in your fucking process, right? Now, you can see that we switch from setters/SDRs to closers, right, for sales calls. So if they no show, then follow process. No show follow up sequence needs to be made. If they respond, manually book them back in, and then it just repeats that cycle. Right? If they do show, hold call with the purpose of further qualifying lead, gathering context, setting frame, and scheduling the second call. Yes, this is a two call close. What we noticed, right, is that we have a higher close rate when we run two call closes specifically for agency clients, right? Then you can see the content block moves to purple. What does purple fucking mean? That is an operator's job. Right. So operator steps in, take data from the sales call, and makes a plan of action loom, sends loom to lead before second call. On second sales call, if no show, bada bing, bada boom. No show, follow up a process. If show, close deal. If deal doesn't close, follow process. If no response, end sequence. If they do respond, offer third call. If they reject the third call, excuse me, end sequence. If they accept the third call, Then we hold the third sales calls. If no show, end sequence. If they do show, close deal. If they don't show after the third call, deal is not closed, end sequence. Now, if they show up to the second call and then they just close, bada bing, bada boom, onboarding call, and then end sequence. Like I said before, to what I can do next, and this is actually what I'm going to do, is I'm going to put literally a second block of essentially this, but it's the fulfillment engine essentially. So okay, after a customer is acquired, how do we get them fucking results? And when you have a value, and when you have a growth engine connected to a fulfillment engine, you have what's called a value engine, and that's literally just the customer's journey, right? You can be so much more efficient as an entrepreneur, as an agency owner, as a whatever coach, consultant, whatever the fuck you are. You're going to be like 20 times more fucking efficient than if you can just see your customer's journey, because once again you can see the drop off point. This is how you have like top down general's point of view visibility on everything that goes on in the agency, right? So this first growth engine is what I'm going to implement like literally today, right now, right? So we can start seeing results immediately. Of course, just specific KPIs and blah 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 blah, but that's beside the point. But moving forward, I'm actually having my business partner implement the outbound email engine so that can be running in unison. So we have two very predictable, right, outbound engines. And like I said before, this is not something that is going to happen. We're going to turn on today and then we're going to immediately see results. Of course, there's going to be a period of time of like multiple feedback loops of just constantly optimizing it so we can get more and better results, right? But that's the purpose, as league, so we can fucking track it. At least we can fucking track it, all right? And then finally, eventually, we are going to run fucking ads, and that's going to be so fun. Key takeaways: don't only rely on content. Never stop trying to get new fucking customers. Build value engines, which include growth engines and fulfillment engines. But none of this information matters if you don't even know how to book qualified calls to begin with. So watch this video next, where I break down exactly how to book more qualified calls without having to increase the amount of viewership that you're currently getting.